We traveled east, over the mountains and into the vast deserts of broken lands. As the days passed, my companion told me of himself, that he had once been a great warrior, and that a dark and secret burden now weighed heavily upon him.
Marius and the Wanderer traveled together across the barren desert wasteland east on foot. Marius himself can't even recall the length of the journey. However, he is now beginning to notice that there's some sort of evil following them. He described it as a dark cloud, but didn't say much more. Their journey across the desert was about to come to a close as they approached the city of Lut-Gholein. Before entering, the two travelers made camp outside the city to rest. This was the first time in weeks that Marius was finally able to sleep. Marius began to see visions of the past through his dreams, where he beheld the great mage Tal Rasha and Tyrael performing the ritual to seal Baal, the prime evil of destruction, away in Soulstone. Unfortunately, the ritual was failing, and so Tal Rasha offered up his body as a battleground where his and Baal's soul would clash until the end of eternity, with Baal imprisoned within Tal Rasha himself.
Now you know what I seek, Marius. This is my brother. Sleep now. We set out with the dawn.
Welcome back, Nephilim. If you're new to this series, please check out part 1 where we cover Act 1 of Diablo II, as we're just about to have a short recap for those returning. Last time on our journey, we tailed Marius and the Wanderer, leading us to the Rogue encampment, where demonic forces were wreaking havoc, much like every other place those two traveled through. We managed to gain the trust of the local rogues, who had lost their monastery to the lesser evil Andariel by slaying both demons of old and allies alike. We then traveled to Tristram, not easily mind you, the old battleground with Diablo himself, to save a Haradrim sage named Deckard Cain, who joined us on our journey to grant us the wisdom we need to win this war. After a long day's journey, the old rogue monastery, now tainted by the stench of blood and demons, was finally found. We cleansed the monastery of all that was once living and slayed the demon queen Andariel, Maiden of Anguish, sending her soul back to hell where she belongs. While this will not rid the sanctuary of her forever, we were finally able to safely travel east with Warriv and his caravan. Now, I bid you welcome to the destination of that journey, the Jewel of the Desert, Lut-Gholein. When we first arrive in Lut-Gholein, we are greeted by Jiren, the Lord of Lut-Gholein. He has heard the tales of our exploits in the west and is grateful that caravans are once again able to freely travel through the Western Pass. Jiren tells us a similar story to that of Akara, one of a strange man who traveled through their lands, leaving a darkness looming over the city. Ever since, they've been under siege by an evil power that cannot be explained. It is only said that the dead are rising from their tombs, and demons are gathering outside the city walls. According to Jiren, the Wanderer was looking for the tomb of Tal Rasha. However, no one knows its true location, only that it exists far out in the desert. We must find the tomb of Tal Rasha before Marius and the Wanderer, else the sanctuary be doomed forever. Jiren says that Atma, the tavern keeper, has a task for us that we must complete. This will be our first quest while in Lut-Gholein. Much like with Act 1, let's grab this first quest before going into more detail about the people in the Jewel of the Desert. Atma tells us that there's a monster that lurks beneath the city within the sewers that has killed many people. Two of those people being Atma's husband and only son. She says that if we can slay the beast beneath the city, we will be rewarded. Killing demons and getting rewards is pretty much the entire reason we're here, so I think our goals line up pretty well. We can enter the sewer through the trap door just up the street. However, we're going to take the entrance near the docks for no other reason besides what I always used to do. While I stammer my way through these dank sewers, let's get on with some introductions of the city folk in Lut-Gholein. There's actually a ton of people in Luco Lane, so I'll just go over the merchants and quest givers for now. We are already acquainted with Atma, the Tavern Keeper, and Jiren, the Lord of Luco Lane. So let's move on to Drognin, the Vajire Mage. Drognin is a mage and researcher who has been searching for Tal Rasha's tomb. It's likely he may be of great use to us on our own search for the burial ground. He is also a merchant, very similar to Akara, who will sell us scrolls and caster weapons. Again, we will be coming to Drognin frequently to see if he has any upgrades for our gear while we're in Act 2. Elzix is an ex-bandit lord who now runs the Desert Rain Inn in Luco Lane. Elzix doesn't have any wares for sale, but he does offer a gambling service identical to Geed. Why do I keep giving him money if all he does is keep giving me garbage? As an ex-bandit, he may know a thing or two of what's going on in the city. It might be worth to talk to him every now and then for some extra information. Farah is a former paladin who is now the blacksmith in Luco Lane. She can sell us weapons, armor, and repair our gear whenever we need it. Her training as a paladin of Zakarum will allow her to heal us whenever we talk to her, fully replenishing our HP and MP. Grease is the mercenary captain who will be responsible for hiring out allies that we can use on our journey. Grease's group is also the group that Asab is originally from. Grease tells us that many of the women and city guards have fled to the palace, leaving the walls of Luco Lane unprotected. Grease and his group of mercenaries were hired to be the shield of the city in their stead. What are you up to in there, Jiren? You sly dog, you. Is this where Marius got his bad habits from? Lysander is the potion maker of Luco Lane. He's grumpy as hell and nearly deaf from blowing himself up with failed experiments, but for the right price, he's willing to sell a potion to pretty much anyone. He'll sell us any potion we need for our battles in the desert. After pillaging our way through hordes of undead, we finally meet our demon face to face, Radament the Fallen.
Farah and I have been talking about the creature recently. From my studies, I have deduced that it is Radament the Fallen, an ancient Horadric mummy that has for some reason left his tomb to prey on mortals.
Radament was once part of the original Horadric group. Upon death, he was mummified and buried in Aranok, the desert land just west of Luco Lane, which we ourselves traveled through with Warif's caravan. Normally, the Horadrim are mummified in such a way to protect their own tombs, but Radament has become malicious and strayed far from his own burial ground. Best not to really question it, and simply return him to the state of death so he can't kill any more innocent people.
What a waste of undead flesh.
After Radament has been slain, our job is done. And he also dropped a book of skill which grants us a free skill point. Hell yeah! When we return to the tavern, Atma is very satisfied now that the beast that slayed her family is no more. In return, she has spoken to the townspeople, and from now on all vendors will sell their wares at lower rates. Atma also lets us know that Jiren wants to see us in front of the palace. However, this is the end to our first quest. Our second quest is a little messed up on second playthroughs. Normally Cain will give us the second quest after we present him with the Horadric Scroll, which was supposed to be in the chest we obtained after killing Radament. However, the quest also triggers if you possess an item called the Horadric Cube. We're not supposed to have this yet, so let's just kind of pretend we don't, but for now, this is our quest trigger. Cain tells us that the Horadric mages magically sealed Baal within the tomb of Tal Rasha, but when doing so, also crafted powerful staves and imbued them with the special power to open the chamber's hidden door. To keep them safe, the mages split the staffs into two parts that could only be combined with a magical item called the Horadric Cube. It is now up to us to locate the cube in the Halls of the Dead, the Staff of Kings in the Maggot's Lair, and the Viper Amulet in the Viper Temple to create a Horadric staff and get to Tal Rasha before Diablo. We have a lot of work to do, and while we're out searching for the pieces of the staff, somewhere in the desert lies the tomb of Tal Rasha, so we might as well keep our eyes peeled for some clues on how to find it. Just outside the walls of Luco Lane, there are swarms of monsters ranging from vultures to undead to giant anthropods. Very early into our desert trek, we find the Stony Tomb. It's not on our checklist, but it might have some clues as to the location of Tal Rasha's tomb, so we might as well check it out. The tomb is crawling with undead, so it's best to be extremely cautious. Well, now's as good a time as any to discuss the death mechanics in Diablo 2. Upon death, you lose money, experience, and all your gear. There are some caveats though, both good and bad. The amount of money you lose is entirely based on how much money you have, including in your stash. If you don't have enough money in your inventory to cover the cost, it will be taken directly out of your stash instead. Thanks, Blizzard. Very cool. When you lose experience, you lose a fixed amount of experience based on your level. However, losing experience cannot cause you to de-level. You will simply go down to 0 experience on your current level. Thanks, Blizzard. Very cool. Lastly, your gear, which is probably the most important thing to you, let's be honest, is left on your body when you died, and you must recover it to get your items back. Well, thankfully as a necromancer, I don't actually have to do a lot of fighting. Sorry, Asab. So it wasn't too difficult to recover my corpse. Definitely going to be more careful with the teleports from now on. Totally didn't almost die in the exact same way. To make a long story short, I got my stuff back and searched the rest of the tomb, but after clearing it out, there really wasn't much in there except for some treasure. Which is nice, but right now we need some answers, not some fine answers. Continuing in our desert comb, we stumble upon the Halls of the Dead, which will be the first stop on our list since it contains the Horadric Cube that we totally didn't already have. Besides, it's very fitting, I must say. After another tomb raid filled with dead things and giant bugs and booby traps galore, we find ourselves in combat with a super unique called Bloodwitch the Wild. No lore about this one, I'm afraid. Obviously not important enough for anyone to keep notes on. Sorry, buddy. Maybe in Diablo 4. Probably not, though. After Bloodwitch is slain, we search the treasure chest they were guarding, which contains the Horadric Cube, a tool that will become essential in our search for Tal Rasha's tomb. After a bit more searching, we start to run into more and more and more bugs, now coming in the form of giant maggots and swarms called itches. That's absolutely disgusting. As some of you may have guessed, we managed to find a small burrow in the ground leading to the maggot's lair. 2 reasons I hate this place. Number 1, bugs. Number 2, tight corridors. My army of skeletons doesn't really do very well in small spaces, so it just makes this place all the more fun to slog through. The maggot's lair has many halls all filled with bugs and poison sacks. It's best to take your time getting through here as to not get yourself caught in the middle of a swarm. 3 levels down, we find ourselves in combat with Cold Worm the Burrower, the one responsible for all these tunnels. There's not a whole lot to say about Cold Worm, although she's also known as the Maggot Queen, potentially linking her to Duriel, who is sometimes referred to as the Maggot King. Cold Worm doesn't put up much of a fight. Kinda makes me feel bad, to be honest, but after she's defeated, we can collect the Staff of Kings from the chest she is guarding. Now, all that's left is to find the headpiece for the staff to be completed. This will hopefully be the last of us running around in the desert. We eventually run into an area called the Lost City, and soon after our arrival, the sanctuary has now been completely enveloped in a seemingly eternal eclipse. We should probably speak to Drognan, but if I'm going to be honest, I really just want to get out of the desert, so let's just try and find the headpiece and then worry about the eclipse later. Our destination is the Claw Viper Temple. Claw Vipers are hideous snake creatures with human features, who have been known to practice dark magics and collect rare artifacts. It is possible that they are the ones behind the eclipse, and so we may end up killing 2 snakes with 1 stone. Why am I like this? Once we reach the Valley of Snakes, the Claw Viper Temple awaits us at the entrance. We force our way through the temple, killing many Claw Vipers, undead, and also many others like Radament, who are part of the Horadric group. Eventually, we find ourselves in front of a monument guarded by many powerful Claw Vipers. After our armies clash and the dust settles, we find the Tainted Sun altar and smash it.
What a pity. I was beginning to enjoy the darkness.
We have successfully brought light back to the sanctuary and found the last piece of the Horadric staff. When we return to town, we combine the located artifacts together to create the Horadric staff. Now we can finally enter the tomb of Tal Rasha, although we still don't have any clues as to where it is. When we speak to Drognin, he thanks us for defeating the Claw Vipers and returning the sun to the Sanctuary. Quest 3 is now complete. Drognin says he's been researching Tal Rasha's tomb, and while he hasn't found the tomb itself, he does have a lead. There was once a powerful Vizire summoner known as Horizon, who had built an arcane sanctuary near Luco Lane. He always kept watch on the great events of the world, such as the imprisonment of Baal within Tal Rasha's tomb. So it's likely we may be able to discover the tomb's location if we can find Horizon's sanctuary. Normally this would be a pretty weak lead since we don't know the location of the arcane sanctuary. However, when Drognin spoke with Jiren about this information, he said to send us his way as soon as we returned. It's safe to say it's possible Jiren knows something about it. When we speak to Jiren, he lets us know the horrifying truths that many of the citizens of Luco Lane have been curious about. Jiren had allowed the harem guilds to join him in the safety of the palace when the demons began to gather outside Luco Lane. However, one night, screams began to echo through the halls of the palace. When the palace guards finally found the source of the screams, they found a band of demons slaughtering the girls. A rift had opened up beneath the palace and demons began to pour through. The guards tried to push the demons back through the portal, but it has been an uphill battle since the slaughter began. This is why Jiren had hired Grease and his men to defend the city. Enemies didn't just exist outside the walls, they also existed within them. Jiren gives us permission to enter the palace, asking us simply to take care on our journey onward. What we find within the palace is as Jiren had described. There were bodies of guards and women scattered throughout, along with hordes of demons filling the halls, but not a living soul in sight. Maybe if Jiren had trusted us sooner, we may have been able to save some lives, but we can only speculate. For now, we must simply press on through the palace. After much bloodshed, we find the portal leading to Horizon's arcane sanctuary. The arcane sanctuary appears to be located on a completely different plane than the sanctuary itself. Marble blocks floating against a starry Windows 95 desktop screensaver lit by torches and starlight. The arcane sanctuary does not appear to follow any normal logic. There are 4 pathways presented to us as we enter the sanctuary, and one leads to Horizon's journal, possibly containing information regarding the location of Tal Rasha's tomb. The paths are long and arduous, filled with demons, and again, this is not a terrain that my fighting style plays well with. At the end of the 3rd path, we locate Horizon's journal. However, the journal is being guarded by the sorcerer who originally fought with Diablo at Tristram. Here, he is simply known as the Summoner. Once defeated, it is finally time to read Horizon's journal. There is a portal located in the Arcane Sanctuary leading to the location of Tal Rasha's tomb. However, the tomb itself is still very well hidden. There are 6 symbols located in the sanctuary. The 7th missing symbol is where Tal Rasha's tomb really lies. The journal has more to say. The Haradrim were made up of many smaller factions, but were finally united under one common enemy: the Great Evils. The Haradrim pursued the 3 across the empires of the East and the lands of the West. Once it was believed that the 3 prime evils were defeated and sealed away within the stones, the Haradrim began to fight amongst themselves once more over petty differences. They abandoned their sacred charge of safeguarding the 3 soul stones, which is what in tale allowed the evils to rise once again. Once we finish reading the journal, the portal to the Canyon of Magi opens, leading us to the location of Tal Rasha's tomb. Before entering the portal, we return to town to speak to Jiren about the Summoner. He thanks us for what we have done and says that they can now finally begin to rebuild their lives. But it'll all be for nothing if we can't stop the greater evil that is becoming more powerful by the day. This completes both Quest 4 and 5. have now arrived in the Canyon of the Magi, and there's no time to lose. We must quickly find the Tomb of Tal Rasha and destroy Baal before Diablo can reach him. The correct tomb is marked with a circular symbol, so that's what we must find. Any other symbol is simply a red herring for unwanted intruders. The 7 tombs line the outside of the Canyon of the Magi, with each symbol marked on a stone just outside the entrances. This one looks kind of familiar. Finally, we reach the true tomb of Tal Rasha. The tomb is filled with demons with similar appearance to that of the ones that Horizon had originally summoned, along with undead and other apparitions. Once we push our way through the dungeon, we find the entrance to the tomb itself. We need only to insert the staff to open it. But I sort of forgot it, so hang on, just give me a second. We find ourselves at the entrance of Tal Rasha's tomb, but did not foresee what came next. Duriel, the Lord of Pain, awaited us inside. Like Ondariel, we have no trouble slaying the lesser evil. However, his presence within the tomb means that we have already failed. Pushing forward, we find Tyrael trapped within the tomb where Tal Rasha was meant to be holding Baal. Tyrael tells us that we are already too late and that Diablo has freed Baal, and now both the Lord of Terror and Destruction roam free once again. Diablo is headed east, this time towards the Zakarum Temple in Kurast, where the final prime evil, Mephisto, Lord of Hatred, is being held. Tyrael is broken, and his ties to the Sanctuary weakened by the second. That means it's up to us to cross the sea and travel to Kurast to stop the prime evils from uniting. If they do, the Sanctuary may be doomed forever. Once we return to town, Cain tells us it was Tyrael who gave the Soul Stones to the Horadrim 260 years ago. He says it was unusual for heaven to interfere with the Sanctuary then, just as it's unusual for them to do so now. But Tyrael appears to be acting on his own accord. It's unclear if Tyrael is going against the wishes of heaven because he doubts man's ability to defend itself, or if he simply sees more of a threat in the evils than his peers. When we speak to Jiren, he says that we have done very well and that very few could have accomplished what we did. He says that it's unfortunate that we did not manage to complete our goal in destroying Diablo and Baal, and offers us passage by sea. Now all we must do is talk to Mashif, one of the captains that makes port runs around the Twin Seas, so that we may travel east to Kurast in chase of the prime evils. Before we head out, Mashif says that rumor has it, things are looking pretty grim in Kurast. Somehow, I don't find that all that surprising. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This time I'd like to give a special shout out to the subreddit r/2bestfriendsplay, who is really supportive of part 1. Who knew a dysfunctional family now spawned from our divorced 3 dads and missing uncle would be such a fun thing to be a part of. Again, I'm going to do the whole YouTuber thing and say if you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe to stay tuned to part 3. This video took a little longer to make than I had planned, but hopefully, with what I've learned, I'll be able to do part 3 much faster. Stay safe out there everyone, hope to see you around.